order. Good evening, everyone. On tonight's agenda is public buildings, page 52 of the budget book. And Mr. Hooper.
Good evening.
Good evening. You're on.
Members of the Finance Committee. My name is George Hooper. For the people that may not know me, I think I know everybody in the room. All right, quick overview. If everyone's on the expenditure detail, the Public Buildings Department's 47 employees. We have 3 non-represented. The remainder is maintenance and custodial staff and 1 admin. If you notice that there is a slight decrease in the amount budgeted this year, that was due to long-term employees that are retiring after years of service and individuals that are stepping up, taking their places at a lower entry level.
How many retirees do you have this year?
So far this year, I've had 3 that have got to their 80%, that have reached it. So my overtime and seasonal is level funded. I believe we have enough there to maintain. So that's why we have the decrease of just about 7%. It's $25,217 less. Any questions on that?
No.
All right. Next line on is utilities. We've level funded our heating fuel. We're using 270,000 gallons of number 2 heating fuel estimated this year and 295 therms of natural gas. We've estimated the $2.30 a gallon, carrying it for FY17, 2021, excuse me, and the blended cost of $1.10 per therm.
How many buildings do we have on natural gas now?
We have 9 buildings that we've converted over to natural gas. And to give you an idea of what that equates to, so you see my total budget number is $945,500. When you convert a therm of gas to a gallon of heating fuel, 1 therm is 0.71 gallons of gas. So if you do the equation of $2.30, you come out for the 295,000 therms to about $487,000. When you use the 295, it's 295 change. There's a savings of $164,341 by converting to gas. So
That's great.
yeah, so every opportunity we get, we're still working with National Grid to try and get the library converted over.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, things are a little slow with the National Grid moving. They're focusing on other things. So, but we keep reminding them we're here, and we do have a commitment. So once we can get them to act on it, we'll convert over.
Great.
The electricity in town is level funded also. There is no increase due to the electric account. The RMLD is not looking at a rate increase currently, and through some of the energy efficiency improvements and the equipment that we replace and working with the RMLD, the town and school buildings were able to offset any.
How you doing with replacing the light fixtures with LEDs in the buildings?
How am I doing with it? Let's see. Currently, the Public Buildings Department is 100% LED. The 4th of July building is 100%. The bathhouse, the cemetery garage, the cemetery office, the DPW, the Hardin Tavern, the North Intermediate School, the Senior Center, the Shawshene School, the Woburn Street, the Public Safety Building is 95%. Browns Crossing, 75%. The current high school is efficient. The West Intermediate is 50%. We'll be talking about the Capitol at that time. Leaving the Butwell, Wildwood, and 9 other buildings to be completely converted.
Okay.
And we've been doing a lot of these in-house with the electricians we have on staff.
That's great.
George, you think you'll finish in 21, all of them, or is it still multi-year?
West Intermediate will be completed, the second phase of that, and as we replace things out, we go at the LED energy efficiency. So I would not say that they're all going to be done, but it is just one of those continuous items that we're working on.
Thanks.
Well, I did see that some of the towns got grants for doing LED projects. Have we looked into that at all?
We go through Mass Save and we work with the RMLD, so one of the things, having municipality, it's a little different, but I'm not aware of any particular grant that the RMLD would have up and beyond that, so maybe there would be something else through a green community, but nothing that I've seen. Okay, town utilities, town buildings, so like I said, that is completely level funded across. Any questions on that?
Is that water and sewer?
No, when
Utilities?
you see electricity for utilities there, that is for our intrusion alarms, repairs, LPG for our generators, and a few other spots there.
Okay.
Maintenance expenses, there is an increase to the HVAC account. It's just above 5% increase, went from $175,000 to $185,000. Although we utilize our own staff, we're finding, even with our high school, that the new technologies cost more money. We're into it now 5 years with our high school, and the routine maintenance, also in our middle school, our public safety building. A lot of this stuff really costs to drive the cost up. And some of the older equipment that we have, it's getting more and more difficult to find and replace.
Any of those scheduled for replacement then, or?
As far as, not yet. No.
Okay.
We will be having some capital, so I'll be talking a
Because I
little bit.
assume there'd be more efficient ones out there now.
Right, a lot of it still is, when I can convert to gas, that's when I increase my efficiencies.
Okay.
Same with the library, as you recall, last year, the capital project, we completed that boiler there, and that's why we're waiting. So if I can convert to gas, usually that's the best time to do that.
And you said that can be converted to a gas.
Correct,
furnace.
right
Yeah.
now, it's a dual fuel
Right.
burner that we had on there, anticipating the changeover.
Right.
So as soon as National Grid will bring the gas train to the side of the building, we will connect.
Great.
We'll do that in the summertime. School expenses, you'll notice is a decrease. The decrease is due to last year, we included $12,000 to redo the lining in the gymnasium floor at the Woburn Street, to do that, reline it all for pickleball and have it all ready to go. So that is completed, and we removed that from the budget. That's a decrease of just over 4%. Any questions? Next item is the asbestos. It's a reduction of 50%. We increased it last year to do, single out some asbestos projects that we had. And you'll see in my capital that we have another one outlined for this year. We're looking to replace a lot of the acoustical ceiling tiles that may contain asbestos material. Regulations have changed. Before, we used to be able to carefully move them aside when we were doing any visual inspections on pipes, mechanical equipment, electrical work. Now, you're not really allowed to even touch them.
You hiring an outside contractor for all
Correct,
those?
yeah, they come in. Although a lot of my staff has been trained, and we go through it to our awareness, and a lot of them in the maintenance department can remove up to 3 square feet. You know, a ceiling tile that's 2 by 2 is 4 square feet, so it's out of their.
It's out of your range.
Yeah, so we'll have a contractor come in and completely abate that hole.
Do we have many of the old 8x8 floor tiles still around, or?
Those are in a few locations, and this building being one of them, you know, so they're 9 by 9 asbestos floor tiles. They wear like iron, but they are. And as far as asbestos goes, I mean, that's encapsulated in the tile, so it doesn't become friable too easy.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Town buildings expenses, there's an increase here. This increase is $7,000. I put that in to replace the cabinets in the kitchen at the fire department. Those are the original cabinets, it's 24/7, that building, that staff's in there. And,
You know what, 20-some, 21 years old?
yeah, they're 20 years old
Yeah.
now. Yeah, well, time went by pretty quick.
You did?
Yeah. So we're purchasing these and we're using our in-house carpenters to put them in.
You purchasing, or I know when Terry was here, she said they were an inmate program
Yes.
to make
The
cabinets?
same one, yeah.
It's the same one?
Yeah, it's through the state, a great program. The product that they push out is spectacular, I will have to say. When they brought in the samples of the product, yeah, right away you could see the quality that these individuals make. So I was able to grab them and have them go up and measure it out.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
We'll be
good.
working with them, so, yeah. And I believe the deputy has some other stuff that they're looking for, but
How do their cabinets compare price-wise? I know, obviously, it sounds like they're much better quality. How do they compare price-wise if you were to?
about half the price.
Cost of labor's
really?
lower.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
And-
that's a good deal.
Right, and the other thing that's about it, when I say quality, I don't know if you've done any kitchen work in your own house, but the cabinet boxes are made out of 3/4 ply, so it's a heavy duty. All the glides are ball bearing, and they're extra heavy duty. All slow close. The kick plates are made out of pressure treated wood, so they're not gonna rot away if, you're mopping the floor, and, yeah, they do a nice job, so. Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. Once we get the senior center done, then you'll know firsthand what they look like, so. All right. The miscellaneous facilities repairs is level funded. It's the same as account. Do you know what this is? You don't have any questions, or?
We used to have it as a separate line item in the budget, then we asked for it to
Right.
go into here, which is a lot easier.
Absolutely.
And it's come in handy.
Yep. Roof repairs is level funded. Again, we do a lot in-house, but when we have to go out and buy products, this helps us do our own repairs. Not too often do we have to go out and hire an outside contractor for this, so that's why we're able to level fund it. And training and conferences remains the same. This is for our MCPPO training, professional groups, and conferences for myself, my assistant, and our building systems individual. So overall, you'll see there's a decrease in my budget of just about $20,000. Anyways, overall, $45,217.
Any questions for George on
I have one.
Teresa?
Yeah. George, as you are very aware, having been the chairman of the Facilities Master Plan,
Yes.
and did so well. One of the things that I was looking at recently was a list of some of the smaller projects in town that needed attention, and a lot of them were under $100,000, some as little as $11,000, I think. And at the time, the architect mentioned that he felt, a good amount of these projects could actually be handled in-house and save even more money.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, since that report has come out, and I guess this is a good question to have Jeff here for too, have we tackled any of those projects, or do we have plans to tackle any of them? My concern is that some of these buildings are buildings that you may not think about on a daily basis. And we don't want or shouldn't want to have something go from needing repair to being beyond repair, because it just kind of got pushed to the side a little bit, or was time was taken up for other more urgent issues.
Right, I mean, there is a lot that we do in town that falls under the town's operating budget. And that we try to do, we have a work order system, and we try to go through and do these repairs as we go along. They have identified a lot that's in that master plan, that the Cecil Harriman Group, and we kind of use that as a guide also, to see what we're going to look at to prioritize.
Okay,
And see how
great.
things are being done. But,
One of the buildings, if I recall, that they identified that your folks did was the cemetery was the office, but
right,
there was it the roof or the soffits, or there was some work that was done over there?
right, we did, the roof had been completed over there, also in the garage. We also did all the rake boards, all the fascias and trim boards throughout. It was done in an AZAC. We replaced the furnace that was in there, so these are type of things that are part of our routine and constant repair.
Okay.
So even though they walk through, you gotta remember, they walk into a facility and they identify every little
Of course.
aspect of it.
Yeah, no, it's not a criticism of the,
Oh, no.
the maintenance program that we had before and still have, which I think is probably, an excellent program. I was just concerned because I was looking at it, and unfortunately, I didn't even know where half these buildings were, because they're kind of small and tucked out of the way, not buildings we normally think about, but they're
Right.
probably very historic, and we want to hold on to them.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. The, again, on that report, it was kind of the 30,000-foot approach. The big picture, we were looking at everything.
Absolutely, yeah.
And as you recall, on these meetings, they identified even like the public buildings department, for when we're going to replace it, how we're going, and I don't feel we need to do that. That,
Right.
the building is in great shape, and
Right.
it's in a good location. So they made some recommendations and things that needed to, or they identified as to be replaced in the future. So,
Yeah, it was kind of like a Christmas list.
yeah, a wish list
Yeah,
of
a
things
wish
to come.
list. Yeah, yeah. No, I totally understand what you're saying.
Sure.
The cost to retrofit the art center so that the school department can use it, where's that money budgeted from?
Well, I'm gonna work with the school department on that.
Okay.
That's a very limited amount of money, I would say. It's one of those things where fresh coat of paint. The breakout, as you recall, that building used to be for the town hall.
Yeah, it's town hall, yeah.
Right, so there are a few offices that are being used for storage right now that will be utilized as offices again. I will work with the school department. I'm sure there are some funds there that, and myself, I have money in this school budget. But I think that's gonna be a minimal amount.
Okay.
The tough part is just going to vacate the building so we can get that.
What's the
right.
timeframe?
I was working with the manager on this, and we need to have it operating by the start of the next school year.
Okay.
So we're hoping to get their staff in there and make it available for registration or any parent issues or student services that are going to be needed towards the beginning of that process. So
Okay.
I'm saying maybe the end of summer. So I know the manager has been dealing with the current occupants
The
of the
occupants,
building.
yeah.
So,
It's going to be a work in progress, clearly. There's a couple of groups, this Piper's group, Highlanders group that's been there for many, many years. They've been contacted, and they're given them until April 19th to make other arrangements. They have some items stored there that they're going to have to relocate. And then there's the chorus group who's also been contacted. They have some rehearsals coming up, so again, they've been given until April 18th to make ready, so to speak. And then I think some of the work, correct me if I'm wrong, George, here, but I think some of the plans are to have custodial crews go in over April vacation and begin to do some work there to get ready for the transition. There's a lot of items that the Arts Council has accumulated over time that we're gonna have to find homes for, everything from artwork to, is it a grand piano that's in there?
Yeah, they have a baby grand, I think it, so that's in there.
So, yeah, we're gonna have to identify new homes for
Yeah.
these things.
Yeah, it's, I mean, I met with some of the Art Council today, and, I mean, it's, they're not happy about it, you know, but we
Yeah,
have,
It's been their home for quite a few years,
right,
that's for sure.
right. We don't have the luxury of extra space, you know, so working with the superintendent, we've looked at all of our school buildings, some of our other town buildings, and it's just, we just don't have that luxury of extra space right now. Maybe after the facility master plan and everything else starts to come to fruition, that, but at this point.
Will that fit all of the student support services in that building?
They have 14 staff members that I'm aware of. Currently, they're in 2 classrooms, just about 750 square feet. There's a lot of confidentiality that goes on in there, and these 14 people sit in small cubicles that are just big enough to put a desk in and have 2 chairs. And because of that, there is no, again, confidentiality, so when a parent would want to come in and speak to them, they have no place that they can break out to or go to. So that and record keeping that the state requires them to keep secured, they keep their records in a pod currently outside the building, which is not the best environment for record keeping.
You could use the basement then.
At the Wildwood?
No, at the Arts Council.
Yeah, there is, we use that for our own record retention, and then there is some space there. They can also secure some within those offices, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because there's plenty of room for them over there.
Oh, I believe so. I mean, the rec department has a lot of their equipment on one side of the cellar. We utilize the other side. I don't know if any of you have been in it
Yeah.
to see the building. Yeah, so, yeah, it's unfortunate that we have to vacate one group to make room for another, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and there's
Are all of
literally
the
is,
people, I'm sorry, are all of the people from the Roman House going over there?
No, just student services from the Wildwood.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it won't affect people at the Roman House at
Oh,
this
okay.
point.
Right.
George, do you happen to know how many school admin we have in actual schools that would be, or should be actually located in a centralized school admin location?
I do not. Yeah.
That'd be a question for
Yeah,
Glenn.
the school,
Yeah, I was just wondering if you.
Yeah.
I mean, I know of the school admins, I know of that, I see them on a regular basis, but I do not. Yeah, has the school department been here?
No,
not
not
yet.
yet. Next month.
Good question.
We'll,
Thought I'd take a shot.
Yeah, there you go.
we'll ask Dr. Brand.
I do have some capital improvements that,
Is that page 74, is it? Oops.
and I'll go with, first, I'll just jump around a little bit on it. The ceiling replacements will be at the West Intermediate that we spoke about. Those are the ones that have the acoustical ceiling tiles that have a percentage of asbestos in them. I'd like to get this hazard out of the building. This will remove the tiles, have it completely abated, and replace them with new. There's only 2 schools that have this left, the West and the Woburn Street. The rest of them are completed.
You planning the Woburn Street next year, or?
Yes. Yeah, for this amount, we would get all the sampling done, all the abatement done, and new acoustical ceiling tiles, so that takes it. The Lula lift at the West Intermediate, that's the limited use, limited access. That's for student accessibility to the second floor of the classroom wing.
Okay.
The one that's at the end of the building is, we can no longer get parts, it can no longer be repaired. It's locked out now. So we're looking to replace it with either a very similar one or a stairwell model. The $79,000 will cover that cost.
Didn't we replace one of those?
We did that was the Shawsheen, we did one, and we did that one back in, I think it was 2008, 2009. Lighting, the second phase of the lighting upgrade at the West Intermediate School. This will do the second part of it. The classrooms have all been done. This will take care of the remainder of the hallways, the gymnasiums, the cafeteria, and exterior lighting
Okay.
throughout the building. So this will be 100% LED also.
So just jumping back to the West School lighting for a minute, that money is proposed to come from free cash.
No, the tile, ceiling tile.
Ceiling tiles, I mean, right, ceiling tiles.
All right, that's it for my capital. That's a total of $539,000. The other two requests I'm looking at is for the new senior center, $650,000, plus $12 million. That'll be fiscal 2022. The first $650,000 will do the feasibility study, schematic design, and the second part will be a new town hall school administration building for $955,000.
And I would just note that the 12 million is just a very rough estimate. You know, one of the challenges obviously is trying to come up with a total figure for building construction like this today, because the pricing changes. My understanding is the square foot cost of construction right now ranges from $500 to $550 a square foot. You know, that could change in another year and a half, probably will change, but you know, there's multiple elements to a project like this.
Well, wouldn't the feasibility study come up with the total square
Exactly,
footage?
that's what the feasibility
And then,
is for.
once we have the total square footage, we can then figure out what the actual cost is going to be
Exactly.
before it goes to
Right,
town meeting.
that's the whole premise of this, that by going in stages and, you know, first doing the feasibility study, so you identify, you know, if there's 3 or 4 sites that are in the running, you take a look at each site. You know, the architect would work with the community to identify the site and then focus on the site issues there, whether there's ledge, whether there's whatever kind of soil there is, whether it's access to sewer, all of those issues would be done through that process. And then, you know, with the feasibility process, they would begin to, in the schematic design, begin to identify the square footage, how many floors, how many rooms, what's the size of the rooms. All of that level of detail would be vetted during that process. So at the end of that schematic design phase, there would be a construction cost estimate that we could then take to a subsequent town meeting.
Is there any funding from other sources that we could also tap into for either partial funding of the senior center?
You mean grants?
Yeah.
Or, you know, I'm not aware of any grants for, you know, non-school buildings. At least to my knowledge, it's primarily, you know, schools. And that's certainly something, you know, we'll continue to look at, but I'm not aware of anything at the moment.
Okay.
maybe something our legislators can look at, or we can find out.
Yeah.
I
know
believe Representative Robertson had mentioned that in the auditorium a couple months ago, that there's a potential for a possible earmark, but it would be a nominal amount compared to the overall price of the project.
But it's better than
Yeah.
nothing. That's
Right,
true.
typically they come out, you remember the one they had for the library
Yeah.
at one time, and so,
Yeah.
I'm sure we take full advantage. But these were identified in our facility master plan too, they're all kind of moving parts that were outlined, so.
Well, not for anything, you know, the town hall school administration feasibility study is coming at a good time if you're going to be taking square footage from other buildings and moving people around. It shows you need for,
That shows the need, correct, correct. God bless you.
any questions for George on any of these articles?
George, I have another question for you. Could you give us an update on the high school gym, please? Is it complete?
It's complete.
Complete,
Yeah,
everything's
came out
great?
beautiful.
Really?
It really did.
Nice.
We got it looks better, and the installation was, I was on it every day, so, seeing what was happening, so we definitely got a better product than we did originally.
Great.
Yeah, came out very nice. If you get a chance, I'll take you over, and
Okay.
you can see it.
Sounds good.
How much did the contractor, the general contractor kick back on that?
Well, what was
Well,
that?
so the settlement was, they were, was it 175? So
Yeah.
that we were holding money as part of the high school project, so we retained 175, and then you'll recall we had to come back to the finance committee. I believe the total project was something in the order of 226 or 226,000 thereabouts for the floor.
219, I
Was
believe.
it 219? Okay. And so we had to come back to the finance committee for the difference.
Yeah.
That's just a general question, just, I'm staring at this other article here that we'll talk about in a minute, but just in general, you've done a lot of these buildings.
Sure.
There's a standard playbook you go with that typically starts with a feasibility study and then,
Schematic
you know,
design.
schematic design, and they're
Yeah.
all generally always separated. And you've largely followed that through all the projects we've had here, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that, like the chair had stated, once you get through the feasibility study and find out what you need,
Yeah.
where you need it, you know, then you'll have a better idea, and then the schematic design will come out and tell you, now you'll have an idea of what it's going to cost
That's just
you.
generally been our practice, correct?
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay, got it.
Yep.
Thank you.
And these prices include all of that, correct? Feasibility study, design.
Correct.
So that will, this would bring us right up to construction.
Right.
Correct.
That's good.
And of course, it gets voted in town meeting,
Mhm.
everybody gets fully aware of
Yes.
what's going
Right.
on. And it's, that's what we received out of the facility master plan. That's what kind of started this whole process.
Any other questions for George on the capital?
Well, did the facilities master plan include any suggestions as to location for
It
the
did,
senior
it did.
center?
We, as Teresa knows, we sat through many meetings. We went through very surveys throughout the community, and we looked at different parcels of land and where they would go and what a better location would be. And they were all suggestions. It's kind of an outline of where we're looking. For example, the town hall was the location for the senior center. The Swain Green area, which is up there, was the location for the new town hall school admin building. So there was a few locations that we looked at, all different parcels of land in town, everything that was available.
Mhm.
And then we tried to think it through, and it wasn't just a few people, it was a lot of people throughout the community that had the input, so.
There's a lot of people put in a lot of time into that.
Yeah, there was a lot of
And
time.
actually, Bernie, you can see it on the town website. You can see the whole report. You can open it up.
I think what, I was explaining this to somebody the other day, having had the pleasure of being on that committee for 18 months, I said it was, looking back, it was pretty impressive, because everybody came in that first night, and we came from all different directions and all different parts of town, and we all had preconceived notions of where things should be and how things should change.
Right.
And the last night, we all walked out as virtually like one person, because we voted unanimously and without hesitation. And it was because of the amount of studying that we did, and all the options being brought forward, and looking at the pluses and the minuses, and coming out with a final decision that everybody agreed on, and because it
Right.
made sense. But it took a long time to arrive at that.
There was a lot of moving parts, and there were timelines, there were prioritizing things that we needed to do in place, and it wasn't just for town, municipal buildings, it was also our school
The
buildings.
schools, yeah.
And you took a lot into consideration. Everything from consolidating school buildings, transitions for students, to, what we're doing here, and, again, I mentioned the senior center and senior housing and proximate, location where it should be. And there was a lot involved, and as you said, we came in, everyone had ideas, but it really, it worked through. At least I thought so,
I thought it worked great.
yeah.
And I think that's one of the points that shouldn't be lost on, people, that when you're, ideally, you want to take a look at the municipal buildings in their entirety, instead of picking off one at a time, that it's almost like a Rubik's Cube, as I used the analogy during the budget presentation, that, one decision here could affect another decision as to where another building is going to go, or whether you consolidate buildings, and then that may free up space for another building, and all those things need to be vetted in a way, in a comprehensive way, in my estimation, so that, you may chip away at it over the course of time, but at least if you have a overarching game plan, ideally, and you probably adjust it during the course of time, but you have a purposeful direction.
Right. We're very fortunate, I think, that we have options.
Right.
So if we did want to move the town hall to the Swain School, it's unbelievable, there's a big parcel sitting there. That's an opportunity that other towns don't have. We have opportunities all around the community to create these environments that we're looking for, but in order to do one, you may have to move somebody else somewhere else, but that actually is where they belong anyway.
Right.
So it's not a very simple scenario. You can't just look at it and say, yes, I want this. You have to look at all the major needs of the community and figure out, how do we get them all accommodated?
It's got to be a logical progression, from one step
Well,
to
you
the
have to
next.
have a little bit of foresight, I think. You have to look at, again, the big picture, and you have to be fiscally responsible also. You can't just go at it. We have to watch how we pay down our debt, we build these buildings in place, and how we're going to go about them. It's not going to be done in 1-2 years.
No.
I hope to see the plan through. I would like to see everything that we've discussed, and I'm looking forward to the growth and what it does for the town. So I think there's a lot of good things coming our way. Jeff and I have talked about it. This isn't the first time Wilmington's had to face things like this. We talk about the schools that we discuss here in our buildings, and a lot of those were built in the late 50s and 60s to the 70s. So our North Intermediate, our West Intermediate, the Shawsheen School, the Woburn Street, this school that was all built within a 10-year period that they put all this. So, think of building 6 new buildings that are over 50,000 square feet each that we need. So we are, again, taking another look at this. And as a community, they did it back then. They knew what they needed. We have to do that now. So
I think we've done that with the master plan. Now we just have to put that into place.
You're correct. You know, I think it has to be, people have to put their needs before their wants. We kind of all have to work as a community to get this done, and I think that's the best approach.
I mean, not for anything, if you take a look at, as an example, the town hall school admin building, what that would do to free up space within the schools, bring everyone into a central area, make town hall a lot easier, more storage, more office space, more meeting space.
And it gives us a civic center, that's what our
Right.
common turns into, so, again, I know we're a little bit off my budget.
It will come back to you, trust me.
Yeah, sure.
I do have another thing I was going to ask you, because I've seen it all over social media and other stuff.
Yes.
Is the Wildwood. I know a few of our members, probably about a year and a half years ago now, I actually took a tour of the Wildwood.
Yeah, I've given quite a few tours.
Yeah. There seems to be a lot of complaints about a few things. You want to expand on any of that, or?
We're keeping the building going. Again, as the maintenance department, we do constant maintenance under the building. It's an old steam heat system over there, so as you can imagine, it's in a crawl space. So we try to get underneath, and every once in a while you will get a steam leak. And we have to do those repairs after hours when nobody's around, so we can get underneath and work on it. The facade of the building, it's aged. It's, again, for its time, when it was built, 1955, it's served its purpose. Again, we talked about some of the tiles. The ceiling has an encapsulant that's sprayed on it, not an attractive feature of the
It looks
building
like it's dripping
whatsoever.
down.
Yeah, if I had $1 for every time someone asked me, what is that? Yeah.
You could replace the ceiling.
And unfortunately, the surface traps, dust and debris. You can't sweep it, you can't touch it, you can't paint it, because it just will start to fall down.
Yeah.
We've looked at different things on that. The windows are all single pane, metal frames, no energy efficiency whatsoever. But we do, currently we're going through all our schools, and we do air, that's not me.
Not me.
We do our air quality checks
That's you?
to make sure everything's going well. So we're constantly monitoring that. As you say, it's on social media, so we are focused on that building also. Try to make it as comfortable for its occupants as we can. We have replaced a couple of the roofs there over time, but that particular building has been identified as one that should go in our facility master plan. So it gets to the point where what are we looking to replace in that? Are we looking to throw in new roofs, new windows, or we know that building's not going
That'd
to
be
be
a waste of money.
right?
Something
So
like that.
we'll maintain what we have. We'll keep the heating systems going, the lights on, and right now, until we can come up with a plan what we're going to do with it. I know the manager, myself, the superintendent, we have discussed this quite a few times. That was another phase of the facility master plan, although the Wildwood will be moved to the forefront, I would say, so.
How many acres is the school sitting on right now?
Over there, I don't have that in front of me. I know it is a good-sized
Is
parcel.
it dry?
There is, the Ipswich River does go through the back there, so the building is on septic. There is no gas in there, so there are some limitations to that location. It is a residential area, but it is a big site. It is a good site. So I'm sure we'll be addressing that.
Right.
So along those lines, you'll note that in the capital, there's $200,000 that's being recommended. It's actually referenced in the school's capital, but it's school facilities / building planning study, and so that the intent there is to hire an architect, designer type of firm that would do a couple of things. One, look at essentially revisit in more detail the elementary schools. So when Cecil came out and worked with us on the facilities master plan, you'll recall they proposed a consolidation approach, which actually Joanne Benton really authored. Part of that scheme, so to speak, called for mothballing the Wildwood and the Boutwell at the tail end of that process. It's really become apparent that we can't wait in terms of the Wildwood because, you know, the building is just, George's crew does a great job maintaining it, but it's not going to be something that can be done for the long term, 10 years or whatever. So I think that approach that was recommended needs to be revisited. The sense I've had in the conversations with the superintendent and even a couple of members of the school committee is that they're not necessarily of the opinion that approach should be the prevailing approach. So hiring a firm will come in and work with them as they have as these firms have in other communities that have multiple buildings that need to be dealt with over a period of time, decide whether consolidation is part of the program, whether buildings can be expanded upon, whether some buildings just need to be knocked down and another building constructed on the site. And then an element of that $200,000 will be used to work with the school committee in the town to identify options and ultimately the preferred option as to what we can do in a more immediate way with the Wildwood. Do we put modular around it? Do we, I don't know, there's probably a number of options. Do we rent space somewhere? I tend to think that we wouldn't want to put serious money into the building because it's so old and it's really not a building that you want to.
I'm working pretty closely with the superintendent and the school department. We are submitting SOIs for all 6 buildings.
Statements of interest.
To the MSBA, and we have identified as the Wildwood as our priority, so which they require. So
When will these be completed and filed?
they have to be, was it March 8th, I believe they have to be submitted in?
April 8th.
April 8th.
Right.
So
Yeah, we have to get the selectmen and the school committee to sign off first.
that's our meeting. So
Yeah.
We're working closely to get these completed so they can be brought before the school committee, before the Board of Selectmen. There are certain requirements, they have to vote on them, minutes have to be approved, and it becomes a package that gets submitted to the Mass School Building Authority. So that's something else that we're currently doing,
Yeah, that sounds like a lot. How long does it typically take for the state to either encourage you or tell you, forget it?
Well, that's, they do 2 programs. They do their co-op programs and they do their accelerated green repair programs. So we will most likely find out by the fall. That's typically what I've heard for a turnaround, and that's if they invite you in. So, and that's also a topic of conversation for us because we're discussing, as we are here, the Wildwood School. And we're looking to get invited in where we can work with the Mass School Building Authority. Maybe that we can they can give us some funding, they can work with us on replacement. We wait till the fall. If we do not get invited in, we're on our own. We have to do that whole process again. We can resubmit and see if we get invited in the next year, but that pushes everything off a year. So we have to have a contingency plan also in place. So that's where this money comes in. So there's a lot to it.
If I recall, one of the conference calls we had recently involved the school superintendent and others, one of the architect that we had used on the high school project. The last round, I think there was something like 111 applications to the MSBA, and 13 were funded. So it's not uncommon to have to go through the routine multiple times before you get in.
The good news is, I heard that there was not an influx of cash, but there was an increase in the cash was that $1.5 billion for school buildings or something through the state. That was with Charlie Baker. So maybe that'll be an increase for this particular program. When you do get invited in, it could be 5 to 7 years to completion. So we don't have a lot of time, so we're trying to keep it together. And we do appreciate everybody's patience, as far as the occupants of the building. Eventually it'll be something that they can be happy in.
That's good. Any other questions regarding the Wildwood? George, can you give us an update on the new kitchen at the senior center?
Yeah, I'm expecting the new cabinets to be coming in either the week of the 18th or the last week in February. I know I was talking with Terry Marciello. She has an event or something on the 14th. As soon as that's done, we're going to start pulling the old cabinets out and making ready for the new. Once the new cabinets are delivered, we will install them in place. New floor will go down, countertops. I already have the sinks ready to go, so.
Appliances?
Appliances, the only one I still have to get is the dishwasher. So, she decided to keep the stove she currently has now. We were out looking at newer ones, but for the cost, and I kind of agree with her, there isn't much of other than just being new, it's basically the same stove, so she can replace that at any time. It's a standard measurement.
Okay.
So she was looking at, when I say she, I meant the director. She was looking to pick up some other items. We're also working on a couple of sets of, we'll call them French doors that go into the old game room and the art room.
Yep.
We've just completed the refinishing of the floors. Like I said, the building now is all LED. I don't know if you've seen the new lighting throughout. It really has made a nice change in the building. The both men's and women's bathrooms, we replaced the exhaust system in there. It's no longer this noisy old system. It's pretty quiet and it works well. We're going to be looking at bathroom petitions also, and once everything's completed, a nice coat of paint. So it's coming along. Yeah.
Any questions for George? Seeing none, thank you, sir.
That's it.
Enjoy the rest of your night.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else tonight, or was I it?
No, you're it.
You're
We
it.
just have some questions for Jeff, and we should be all set.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank
Take care.
everybody.
Thanks.
Enjoy the rest of your meetings.
You can always come by and visit us.
I'll watch you on TV.
At least our ratings will go up. On your, in front of you, Jeff had sent from Jonathan Eaton, when we talked about Lou and the changes to Brave Act. Jeff, do you want to go over it, or?
Yes, actually, do you mind? Thanks. So the plan, proposal is to place an article on the town warrant to add these particular, adopt these particular provisions of the general laws to increase the benefits for veterans or spouses of veterans. So currently, in the first case, the individuals who, if their property is placed in a trust, and they are not do not have an interest or are not a trustee, they would not be eligible for the veterans benefit. This provision, if adopted, would make them eligible. In fact, there was a case that Karen Rashis just spoke to me about today with someone who had come in seeking their exemption and had received it in many years past, and apparently perhaps in talking with their attorney or estate planner had opted to put their property in a trust, and because they were not named as a trustee and did not have a beneficial interest, they would not be getting the $1,000 benefit. So if this is adopted, that this would change that. That's the first provision. And then the second provision for a parent or guardian of a veteran who is who dies as a result of injuries sustained through service, they would be entitled to an exemption, full property tax exemption. So essentially, what'll happen here is that, and it's not clear at the moment. It's always hard to tell how many people you're going to have in this situation, but the cost associated with these benefits would be taken out of the overlay reserve. So we've been budgeting for the last many years now $900,000 in the overlay reserve, which covers any abatements if someone pursues a case at the appellate tax board and prevails. The money comes out of the overlay account. The senior tax work-off program, the benefit associated with that, which historically in the last few years has been around 18,000 or thereabouts, comes out of the overlay reserve. So this would also come out of the overlay reserve. Many of the previous benefits that the town has taken advantage of and that are available to veterans, the state provides a reimbursement on. There would not be any reimbursement associated with these benefits here.
On the second one, if the parents had their home in a trust, would they still be eligible?
If the parents had their,
Two different laws.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't,
why I asked.
yeah, I don't think
Because-
that would
because
apply.
the first one is when the veteran is still alive. The
Yes,
second one is when the veteran is deceased. Okay?
yes.
So if that deceased veteran's parents have their home in a trust, are they still eligible for that?
I am not sure. I would have to check on that.
And I would assume at that point in time, the parents are older. Can they stack benefits? You know, can they get like an over 65 exemption as well as the military exemption, or can they? In this case, they couldn't
Yeah.
because it's going to be paid in full, but
Right.
you know, can you stack benefits?
I will have to check.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else have any questions on?
Yeah, what is the dollar figure for these things? For example, number one, is that a straight $1,000 credit on your taxes? You've mentioned 1,000. didn't you?
Yes, I believe
There's no
in
figure
the,
there.
I believe in that case it would be 1,000. I'll confirm, but I believe it is 1,000. And then the second one is, the full property tax.
Full, okay.
And does that apply strictly to a single-family home, or can you have like an in-law apartment in it, or?
I don't know. We got, okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, they don't recognize
No,
the
they don't
renter.
No, they don't specify, so that's why I want to find out
Hmm.
more info.
Hmm.
Any other questions for Jeff on the Brave Act? The other thing that was placed before you were the two petitioned articles from Mr. McCoy in the Senior Center, and they were for your information only. So we'll be taking those up at the public hearing. Jeff, do you have anything else for us?
Yeah, I do have a question here on that. If I read this right, isn't the location that he's suggesting the property was off from the church?
That's right, that's one of the parcels, yeah.
Okay. I had thought something had been said about it. He was suggesting in the ball field out back here or something.
Well, so there's two separate articles. One article, the senior center would be located here, and he had referenced potentially behind the town hall or adjoining the town hall. The other article that he
Okay.
proposes is for the property next to St. Dorothy's.
Okay. I hadn't
Because I
read
think
the
you saw our
second
meeting
one.
and the questions that were coming up.
Yeah, I hadn't read the second one.
Yeah. Do you have anything else for us, Jeff, or?
No, I think that's it for tonight.
Okay, has everyone read the minutes from February 4th? If so, I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? Passes.
I abstain.
And one abstention. I don't have anything else, but I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Sorry, did you have a question?
Yeah.
I had a question for Jeff.
Oh, go ahead.
Jeff, have we ever looked into a grant writer or consulting for grant writing?
No.
I know a lot of other towns do it on a consulting. You know, whatever they bring into the town, they might get paid on a certain portion. I know Newton
Yeah.
has brought in almost $20 million in grants.
Who is?
Newton.
Newton? Yeah. No, that's not something we've looked at. Certainly it's something to consider, I guess. Quite frankly, it seems, at least more recently, given some of the other issues we've dealt with, whether it's fire or police or, there's been other issues that came to the fore, but certainly something.
Actually,
I just think that department heads get overwhelmed to add on to their plate to go out and look for grants all the time. I think it should be a condensed area and
Yeah.
concentrated on.
At one point in time, wasn't it one of the police officers that tried doing some grants for?
Yeah, and trying to recall who it was at the time. We do have in the police department, and I'd have to talk to the chief who's doing that now, but I think in the past, it seems like Brian Moon may have been involved. I think Brian Pupa may have been involved in some of the grants. So, within some of the departments, there have been individuals who have been responsible for grants. In the DPW, we were able to get some money, and I forget now whether it was Jamie McGaldy or Joe LeBeo that pursued them, but we received some funding to buy some recycling barrels. So there has been some limited amount of that, but we don't have a grant writer that is responsible for, grants across departments.
We've used grad students. We were pretty successful, like
That's right.
with our public health and some of the other agencies. So we just bring them in on a sort of a rotating basis. It gives them a little bit of on-the-job training.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's something we can definitely expand on. There's a lot of money out there in grants. And
That's for sure.
a lot of towns around us have been getting a lot more grants. And I think it's burdensome for the department heads to always be out there looking for that kind of stuff. It's just too much on their plate.
Yeah,
And it's
that's,
a little specialized as
Right.
well. I
Yeah.
mean, it'd be great to have college students, but I would even be willing to hire on a temporary basis or part-time basis, somebody that's an experienced grant writer to come in and take a look at where they can help us. I know we've talked about this before, but then, it's always been kind of not brought back up again. But if there's money out there, the town of Wilmington should be going after it if we can. And I agree 100% with Mary Ann. It's unreasonable for us or anyone to expect department heads that are busy doing the work of their department to assume the talents of a grant writer, a successful grant writer. So we should probably look into investing in one of those people. It wouldn't be a long-term thing. Maybe it would be a relationship type of thing where they could come in, we could get to know somebody, see what kind of luck we have with them. When the well runs dry, we,
Or, yeah, I mean, I
part ways, and then
suppose-
when we start getting busy again and having ideas about things,
Yeah.
However it would be fashioned, I think that we really need to take a look at this.
And, the idea of hiring a firm, a consultant, I mean, it wouldn't necessarily have to be a firm, but there are individuals that do this on some kind of a basis. That may be something to look at as well in terms of a situation where you're not hiring them on a long-term basis, you're not paying benefits and all those kind of things. I know, years ago, we had done some of that with regard to housing. There were, and I'm sure there still are, a number of different housing consultants that are out there that can pursue different housing-related grants. Back a number of years ago, we did have the grant program that brought in some money that allowed for individuals, it was income-based, to make improvements to their home and get money that was at a lower interest rate than they could get at a bank to do some home improvements. That program, it was through the Community Development Block Grant Program at the time, but I think the rules and regulations have changed, and typically communities in our situation are not eligible for those funds anymore, but there certainly are other grants out there.
Just even as a firm will come in and do it on a contingency basis, they get a percentage of whatever they bring in.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of models of the towns are going toward. That way they're not an employee and there's
Right.
an incentive for them to bring in more money to the towns.
Okay, I will take a look at it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jeff? Or Brian? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion then to
Wait,
adjourn.
there's a motion on the table.
Okay, is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your night.